Mr. President, we're coming to the conclusion of weeks now of debate on the nominee to be the Attorney General of the United States. And we still have other debates to have on other people before this process ends. In fact, somebody observed this week that you have to go back to the very founding of the government, to the first administration of George Washington, to find a time when it's taken longer to put a cabinet in place, and George Washington only had to find 4 people in a government that was just trying to establish itself. But we are taking a maximum amount of time in a cabinet and presidential nominations that usually happen quickly. There's traditionally been an understanding in our country that when the president's elected, that the importance of the president being able to put his stamp on the government as quickly as possible, and eventually we'll be able to say his or her stamp on the government. But up till now, presidents have had that opportunity. I've read somewhere that from President Garfield right after the Civil War till through the Franklin Roosevelt, that cabinets in those that were put in place in the first days of every one of those administrations, maybe often even the very first day. But what we've seen in this debate is also the questioning of people's motives, not just their decisions. Now, I don't quote Vice President Biden often, but one of the quotes I've heard him give often, and one that I've agreed with in all my time here, is that it's appropriate to question somebody else's decisions in public debate, particularly when you're debating your colleagues who've also been elected to these jobs as well. But it's frankly not appropriate to question their motives. And when we start doing that, that is always a mistake. When I was the whip in the House, Mr. President, I used to tell the freshman members of the House, you're going to enjoy this opportunity and be better at it while you're here, if you can vigorously fight for what you're for, but if you'll also believe that in virtually 100% of the cases, the person on the other side of that debate is as well motivated and as genuine as you are. You know, you can be wrong and not be evil. You can be wrong and not be badly motivated. Elections do have consequences. Every person that we're talking with on this floor in this debate was elected to the Senate. Now, I think Senator Sessions will be confirmed Attorney General, and so sometime later this week, one of our number will have been appointed to this job. But these are people who come to this process as the Constitution determines, and they serve here as representatives of both the state they represent and the Constitution and what it stands for. You know, in the case of Senator Sessions, we have a colleague who has been here for 20 years. Anybody who's been here less than that served every day of their time in the Senate with Senator Sessions. People who've been here longer than that have served all 20 years with Senator Sessions. And I don't know how you can do that and not see the quality he brings to that job every day. He and I haven't always voted the same. And in fact, there's probably no member here that I've always voted the same with. But he comes with a background of integrity. He was an Eagle Scout. And not only was he an Eagle Scout, he was a distinguished Eagle Scout. I'm not even sure I know the difference in an Eagle Scout and a distinguished Eagle Scout. I thought all Eagle Scouts were distinguished, but starting even then, Jeff Sessions has always stood out a little above the crowd. 4 decades of public service. 1975, he became an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District in Alabama. Half a dozen years after that, he became the U.S. attorney in that district, held that job for 12 years until he became the Attorney General of Alabama. People trusting him to take those responsibilities. And then in 1997, as I said, he came to the Senate He's been a senior member of the Judiciary Committee for some time now. He's worked across party lines, and he's done that in fights for justice, in fights on behalf of the victims of crime, and frankly, on more than one occasion, in fights to be sure that those accused of crimes also had their day in court. And after they had their day in court, it was Senator Sessions who was instrumental in leading the fight for the Fair Sentencing Act. Senator Sessions was very involved in the Paul Coverdale Act for Forensic Sciences to be sure that the evidence that was in court would be unassailable to every extent possible. He's been vigorous in wanting to be sure that those accused of crimes had justice, as well as those who were the victims of crime. When I came to the Senate, Senator Coons and I, a Democrat from Delaware, a good friend of mine, and thinking about him, and this week that his father has passed away. But when we came to the Senate 6 years ago, we formed the Law Enforcement Caucus, and Senator Sessions was a great supporter of that effort. When we were able to get to reauthorize in the last Congress the Victims of Child Abuse Act, this is the law that provides federal assistance to locations in virtually every state, 22 in the state of Missouri, where kids who've been the victims of crime or the witness to crime have a place to go and get the information out of their lives that needs to get away from them so they can get on to the next thing that happens. A law that protects our most vulnerable children and designed to hold the perpetrators of crimes on those children, or those children witness, allows that to be dealt with in the right way. Senator Sessions was a great advocate for that. He's been endorsed by the major law enforcement associations of the country, as well as many of his colleagues, but the law enforcement associations that say that Jeff Sessions would be a good attorney general, or the Fraternal Order of Police, the National Sheriff's Association, the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, the Major Cities Chiefs Association, the Major County Sheriffs Association, and the list goes on. And then you get to the victims of crime groups that have endorsed Senator Sessions. 5 former U.S. Attorney Generals and 1 former FBI director are on that list that say that Jeff Sessions would be a good person, in the case of 5 of them, to hold the job they held, and they know more about that job than any of us do. Michael Mukasey, Alberto Gonzales, John Ashcroft, Bill Barr, Ed Meese III, all, along with FBI Director Louis Freeh, have endorsed Jeff Sessions for this job. There's been some discussion of his relationship with African Americans, and we've seen African Americans' endorsements from his state, but also the former Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, our colleague Tim Scott, who will be here later this afternoon, and I intend to be here for his remarks, Larry Thompson, the former Deputy Attorney General. These are people who know Jeff Sessions and know what he has to offer to that job. It's a job of great responsibility. Seldom will we as senators have an opportunity to confirm someone to that job or any other job that we know as well as Senator Sessions. We know his family. We know his recent addition of twin grandchildren to his family just a little over a year ago. We know how much he cares about them. We know the moments that he has reached out to each of us as we've had challenges or had things that we needed help with. I think he'll do a great job as Attorney General. That'll, I believe, happen later today. I think the country and the Attorney General's office will be in good hands late today when Jeff Sessions undoubtedly, I hope, and I'm confident, becomes the Attorney General, and I look forward to that vote later today.